tomorrow, it's be like in the hundreds, next 10 days.
That's the only one that we have. Then you go to just once you hit east of Victoria, then start heading out. Everything's green, and they've had rain. Mosquitoes are that big. Yeah, we don't have to have PBC meeting.
If we need an organizational meeting.
You guys ready?
We are ready.
We'll do the Public Building Commission first. The meeting for the Ellis County Public Building Commission will now come to order. And Bobby, please note that all the board members are present, and there are no changes to the agenda. Approval of prior minutes.
Good to me.
Okay. Any minutes stand as submitted. Consideration of accounts payable. Darren.
We've made our accounts, or our payable accounts for the lease payment earlier this year, so there's still no future payments for the rest of 2022.
Okay. Project manager report.
There's still no current projects within the PBC, and I was just visiting with Mr. Jeter before this. The PBC was started back in 2012, 2013 for the current project that is being paid off through the GO bonds from 2013 to 2023. 10 years of indebtedness for the remodel of this building, as well as the 601 Main, the former health department and extension district. Come the first quarter of 2023, we will make that final payment to pay off that GO bond. And at that point, and just consulting with Mr. Jeter, we may not need a quarterly meeting of the PBC because there'll be no accounts payable and no current projects for that bond.
Okay,
So
that
that will
sounds good.
change next year a little bit.
Commissioner Joe, any comments? No. Commissioner Neal, any comments?
No, sir.
Okay, Public Building Commission meeting will adjourn at 5:01. The Ellis County Board of Commissioners meeting will now come to order. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bobby, could you call the roll?
Commissioner Joe LaRue,
Here.
Chair Butch Schleier,
Here.
Commissioner Neil Younger.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Order of business, there's no changes to the order of business, and we will have 2 executive sessions this evening. Prior minutes from June 22nd and July 5th. Commissioners, concerns?
No, sir.
Minutes stand as submitted. Do I hear a motion for the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion for the consent agenda, items A through G.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes 3-0. Issues from persons not on the order of business. Okay, I guess no one's here for that. Monthly financial report, Commissioners, did you review the reports? Concerns, questions?
No, sir.
Okay. Our next agenda item is the jailer job description change. Sheriff Brown.
Good evening, Commissioner. Scott Brown, Ellis County Sheriff. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Good?
Hot.
Yeah, hot, yes. So this evening, I've got a couple of requests to change some titles within our jail for consistency across. We currently have a jailer. I'd like to recommend that being changed to a jailer 1. There will be no change to any of the job descriptions within that particular one. And then I also have what was a senior jailer, and I would like to change that to a jailer 2 is what I'm requesting for consistency across the board. So we're jailer 1, jailer 2 as you move. But I also would like to add within that job description that they must attend a supervisor training since they're going to supervise subordinates when the sergeant wouldn't be in there. And so I would request the commission to approve that, if so, and take action on that this evening.
Sheriff, I have just one question.
Yes, sir.
Would someone have to work a certain number of years before they're moved from a jailer 1 to a jailer 2?
Yeah, we do have that, and it's going to be at the completion of their 4th year for that jailer 2 position, yes.
Okay. Commissioner Joe, do you have any comments?
No, I mean, it seems reasonable to have established progression so that they can go on from that to sergeant and beyond, so.
Commissioner Neal?
The supervisor training, is that a 1 day, a week, a month thing?
There is a supervisor training specifically, I didn't note it in here because there's always new training coming in, but there's actually a supervisor training specifically for the jail, and I would lean towards that, but if there's something else that may offer that same type of training, we might expand that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, do I hear a motion for this?
Sure. I move to approve the change the job description title from jailer to jailer 1 as attached. And I also move to approve to change the job description title from senior jailer to jailer 2 and the job description as attached.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you,
you,
Commissioners.
Doc.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is our outside agency funding. And it looks like, as we look at the total funding for outside agencies, there's about a 25% increase in what we allocated last year. We did ask agencies to request the same amount they had last year. Some did, some didn't, so we'll go through these. And commissioners will try to decide on the appropriation this evening. 2 commissioners decide on appropriation, and that's the way it'll be. And I just want to go down the list. Is that how you want to do it?
That'll work with me. Sure.
Okay. The first one here on the list is the Western Kansas Child Advocacy. They're requesting $10,000 this year. Last year they requested $5,000. In 2021 it was $4,500. Commissioner Neal, any concerns, comments?
Nope. Looks good to me, especially for children.
Commissioner Joe?
It's fine so long as, we're able to do it within the budget. But if we do give them double what they had last year, that does put us in a position as we go down the list where, there's one agency that had a 208% increase in their ask. So if you say yes to one, how do you say no to another?
And I don't disagree with you at all. I think 100% is a big increase.
Sure.
Especially when we're talking about, inflationary rates only being 8% or something.
I mean,
So,
perhaps meeting somewhere in the middle might be appropriate. I don't disagree with Commissioner Younger. They do wonderful things for children in the area, but we did ask everybody to try to stay as close to last year's request as possible.
so would you be in favor of 7,500?
I would.
Commissioner Neal?
Yeah, I can live with that.
Okay, let's put that one down then for 7,500. Okay, CASA of the High Plains, they're requesting the same amount they had last year at $4,750. Is that fine with you?
Yes, sir.
Joe? Commissioner Neal?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then that'll be $4,750. Hayes Area Children's Center, this is a new request. Commissioner Neal, any concerns, comments?
That's a lot of money right out of the hole, out of taxpayer dollars.
It is.
That said, they do have previous requests that have been granted over the years. 2018, 2019, they got 135, and then after that, it dropped to 120.
Right. The issue I have with this is they had the Tiny Cake program, and they had the maternal child health program, got grants for both of those. They lost those grants, and now they want the county to fund their operating expenses.
The other thing that I'd mention too is they're one of the handful of folks that didn't come back throughout the year to give an
Right.
update, and so that makes it a challenge for us to be able to better anticipate their need if we don't get updates throughout the year.
But if we want to fund operating expenses for nonprofit organizations, there could be a long line.
There will be a long line if that
So
happens.
I'm in favor of just denying their request.
Okay.
Commissioner
I'm
Hill?
perfectly fine with that.
Okay. DSNWK, $250,000. They're asking for the same we allocated last year.
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with that, too. Okay, the DSNW Take Tiny K program, that was a program they got from Hayes Area Children's Center, and we were funding that program to a level of $120,000, so they're requesting that funding. I'm inclined to go along with that.
I'd say that'd be fine, because that just shifts the money from Hayes Area Children's Center to
Sure.
the agency now tasked with doing what they were.
Right. Big Brothers and Big Sisters, they're asking for $5,000.
I'm fine with that.
Commissioners, I have a big problem with this. And the biggest problem I looked at is I went through the fundraising with the
Bless
Ducks.
you.
Their first place award is for $10,000. I can't imagine anyone giving away $10,000 and then asking me for $5,000. That just doesn't make any sense. So I'm a great big no on this. Commissioner Neal?
I would like to fund them some, maybe in, like maybe 1,000 to get started.
Well, if they reduce their prize fund by $9,000, they'd have $9,000 they could put towards operations.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Joe?
Yeah, I didn't know about the $10,000
Yeah,
prize.
It's right on the internet.
And, unless that drove quite a bit of donations for folks seeking that seems, I don't disagree funding them at a certain level would seem nice, but they've not had a request from us
Mhm.
that they've not had funding since 2018 at least from us, so I'd say they could go another year without it, and maybe we could reach out to them and let them know, hey, this is what would make us be a little bit more receptive to a
Sure.
request the following year.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Commissioner Neal, you go along with that?
I can go along with that. Maybe we can get them to come back in and explain a little more, and then we can ask them questions about the, $10,000 prize. And
Perhaps they'll surprise us and tell us that it raised quite a bit of money,
Mhm.
and so,
that would give a little justification there.
Okay, the next one is High Plains Mental Health. They were requesting $280,000, which is what we awarded them in 2021 and 2022. I might mention we are under statutory obligation to assist with their funding. The statute doesn't say how much, but and we do benefit a lot with that funding because of the employment they do offer.
yeah.
So,
Well, and they've come in throughout the year. They did what we asked. They requested the same level
Sure.
of funding as a previous year, so I'd be fine with the request.
okay.
I'm good with that.
We'll keep that at 280 then. Okay, then we have Grow Hayes. They're requesting 180,000 this year. That's up 30,000 from last year. I thought about this quite a bit. I think Grow Hayes is doing an excellent job. Don't have any problems with that. In 2020, 2021, we funded them $27,500. In 2022, with a $150,000 funding level, that's a 500% increase. If we grant the $180,000, that's a 600% increase over 2021 levels. I would be inclined just to let this go at $150,000. Commissioner Neal?
I would say split it down the middle and go 170.
Commissioner Joe?
Well, the middle would be closer to 165.
Yeah.
Are you okay with the middle? Okay. Commissioner Neal, you want the middle?
That's fine. 165.
Okay, we'll go with 165 on that one then.
Yeah, that seems reasonable, because even though 2 years ago it was a big jump, year over year, it's a 16.7%.
And back in 2021, a lot of the agencies had been reduced because of the funding situation Ellis County found itself in. Okay, the Ellis County Conservation District is next, and they asked for the same amount we gave them last year. So I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with it, but they really need to come in and give updates. As pointed out to them when they came to present to us, their ask of us is roughly 45% of their budget. And so if we're 45% of their budget, they can come in and give us updates.
Yeah, and I believe they should, absolutely.
I know they did visit with me on that. They were wondering what they should come in and, tell us. I said, well, what you're doing with the funding. So I believe they'll come in and,
Okay.
yeah, we can keep that flat. Stay with
Okay.
that.
We'll stay with what they had. The Ellis County Historical Society, we were giving them $72,000. They're asking for $150,000. That's a 100% increase. The Historical Society has been doing a lot. It seems like they have a lot of momentum going, and they're very enthusiastic about the issue. So I would like to increase their funding. Just to what level, I think we have to determine.
I think what seems reasonable, if it's all right for me. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to jump in.
You're fine.
It's just I already put together. It's a very pretty spreadsheet. It's got a lot of colors on it. If you guys want it, I'll send it to you. But anyway, a 208% jump is too much. That's nowhere near flat, which is what we requested. But I don't think it would be unreasonable to fund them at the higher level that we did back in 2018, 2019, when we felt as a governing body that they were doing things well.
Okay.
They dropped off, and then they've done an amazing job in the last 12 months. There's no denying that. So I'd say it would be appropriate to return them to their previous higher level of funding.
Would it be easier just to say $100,000?
Yeah, I'd be fine with that.
That's what I was going to say. Let's just keep it
Okay.
even and
We'll set them at $100,000 then. The Ellis Alliance Association, $1,750. That's the same request they had for the last few years.
Yeah.
So I think we can go along with that one.
Yep.
Foster grandparents, they didn't get any funding last year because of some issues with COVID. Now they're requesting $85.52, which is actually less funding than they received in 2021.
Yeah,
So I don't have a problem with that.
yeah, they're actually under their previous funded year, so I'm fine with that.
Okay. Then we come down to the senior companions. They're asking $22.50, and again, they didn't get funding last year because of the viral issues. The previous funding looked like was around $18,250. They were getting 23 plus back in 2019. So we need to decide on appropriate level there too. Commissioner Neal, do you have any thoughts?
I myself wouldn't mind doing the just a 23 straight out.
23,000?
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Joe?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, we'll do 23,000 straight out on that. Okay. Now, the next two, the Hay Senior Center and the Northwest Kansas Area Agents on Aging, basically, one gave up $15,000 and one took $15,000. So they kind of blanch when we look at that issue, give or take a few dollars.
Yeah, the total funding between the two is roughly 1,000 more compared to last year, and
So,
so it's about
I think we can-
flat.
Commissioner Neal, are you okay with that funding?
I am fine with that.
Okay. We'll keep them as they are. Victoria Mill Site, 2960, same funding they had last year.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that. Commissioner Neal?
I'm good with that.
Okay. The Ellis Nutrition Center, $20,295. The gentleman that was in charge of that was in here within the past year, and they really had some issues trying to get back on their feet since COVID. So I would like to increase their funding from what they had. They were down to 16.3. In 2019, they got 19.6. So now they're asking for $20,295. I wouldn't mind seeing this just go at 20,000.
Yeah, I remember the gentleman coming in and them talking about some of the challenges they had and how in that community this is one of the few ways a lot
Sure.
of folks get food. So I don't want to stand in the way of folks
Okay.
getting fed.
Is 20,000 fine with you, Joe? How about you, Neil?
Perfect.
Okay. The Center for Life Experience, they're asking for $5,000. Last year, they got $3,000. The year prior to that, they got $1,500. Do we want to go with 5,000, or do we want to back off on that a bit?
I'm a board member of that,
You're a board
so I
member.
can
Joe, what do you
to
think?
excuse myself.
I would be inclined to either go with what they got last year, since it was double what they got the year prior, or if you are looking to do an increase, doing what we've done with other agencies and meet part way,
So make a $4,000 increase,
Yeah.
or $4,000?
which would be 1,000 increase.
Yeah,
So,
okay, let's do that.
Okay.
Okay, then we go to options. Options got 2,500 in 2021. They got 5,000 in 22. Now they're asking for 10,000. That's a pretty big increase in just a couple of years.
Yeah, it is. They do really wonderful work, as do many of the other agencies that have approached us for support. Again, when we were very clear about asking folks to stay as close to flat as possible, I don't know that big of a jump is appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
But with COVID increasing the needs for services at the tail end of it in the endemic, where now that people can get out and about and seek the services that they couldn't seek during the year, I'd be okay with meeting in the middle.
About 7,500?
That's what I was going to suggest, 75.
We'll do 7,500 then for options. Okay, then the Heartland Community Foundation, they've been requesting 5,000. At one point, we weren't putting that in this list. We were just allocating that as they requested it. And we said, well, let's go ahead and put it on our list so we can budget it better. But $5,000 is what they have requested again, so I'm okay with 5,000.
Yep.
And then DSNWK Access Transportation, they're requesting $50,000 as they have the past 2 years.
I'm good with that.
Yeah,
Good with that too. Joe?
I'm fine with that as well.
Okay. Humane Society is asking for $2,600, which is what they've had asked for the last 3 years. So,
Yeah,
you okay with that, Joe?
I'm okay with that. It's the
Commissioner
same
Neal?
as
Too.
last year.
Okay.
And overall, I'm in favor of the list as it stands, because it's, that brings us from 280, 457 over last year, down to 85,112 over last year.
Okay.
And that increase of 85,000, considering it's mostly agencies that took a dip during COVID and now they're seeing an increase in the services that they provide our community, it's something that could be understood and
Okay, sure.
articulated.
Yeah. Okay, great. Did you get all that, Darren?
One question, just for clarification on the Big Brothers Big Sisters, what was the commission's decision on the allocation there?
We're not going to fund them, not this year. And I think it was decided to perhaps reach out to them, maybe have a discussion next year.
Prior to the meeting in June, so that way they
Right.
can discuss it more? Okay, I can do that. So just for verification, make sure, sounds like Commissioner LaRue was also tallying everything up. I got 1,192,373,
Yeah, that's what I got.
which would be an increase of 85,132.
12.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I typed as we went, so if you need to compare notes later, just let me know. I guess.
Okay, then the next item on the agenda is the 2023 operating and capital budget review. Darren?
Now it's my turn to go over a bunch of numbers.
Yeah.
As the commission is aware, it's our next stage in the development of the 2023 budget for Ellis County, not just the general fund, but all of the subsequent funds that come with it, to include the enterprise fund at solid waste, the fire district, and several of our other budgeted funds, like the NG 911 funds. Most of the questions that I want to discuss tonight with the commission is just some verification and some clarification on the general fund itself. And the first question to go over is, I know it's somewhat new to Commissioner LaRue, but it was new to the state in 2021 when we had to move away from the tax lid and talk about the revenue neutral rate. Just for clarification, our revenue neutral rate is based on what the mill levy would be based on last year's valuations compared to this year's valuations at the same. Our revenue neutral rate would drop from where the current rate is roughly 37 down to just over 32. If we were to exceed that by keeping what the commission's goal was earlier in the year, was trying to keep our budget level the same, or our mill levy the same, we would exceed that revenue neutral rate, and then thus force us to have a special meeting when we adopt the budget, that each individual commissioner has to individually state their vote, and then we have to complete a resolution that we were going to do that. By the statute, and Bobby can remind me, but basically by the 25th of July, we have to notify the clerk if we intend to exceed that, the 20th. If we intend to exceed that revenue neutral rate. At first glimpse of the budget, it's very easy to see that we would exceed that revenue neutral rate by trying to keep our mill levy the same as it was as the previous years, for the biggest reason of the the increase of funding that the commission has requested to put into the Fund 78 for the road and bridges, to all the different roads and the bridges that have been identified in our capital plan. So that would be my first question, is if you would approve me to send a letter to our county clerk, an official letter to the clerk, even though she's sitting across the way here, letting her know that we are planning on at least going to exceed our revenue neutral rate, but still with the intention of keeping our mill levy at 37 mills.
I don't have a problem with it. Commissioner Neal?
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Commissioner Joe?
I'm fine with it. It accomplishes another goal that we had with this year's budget cycle. One being as close to flat as we could to the previous year, which we ourselves have done our part in regards to outside agency requests, and department heads have done with the budgets they've submitted in general. So, yeah, keeping the mill levy where it's at is something that would be good, even if it does exceed the revenue neutral rate. But I guess you could write Bobby a letter and I could walk it over for you. No?
And the revenue neutral rate, to ensure that we stay under the current mill levy rate of that 37.396, I don't remember the exact, 37.395. We'll try to get the preliminary budget spreadsheet sent to the state with a estimated valuation right at 37 mills, or a total budget that would equal out to 37 mills. So that way, when the final budget numbers come in with the final valuations come November, that the mill levy doesn't fluctuate and increase for next year. It gives us a little bit of a buffer.
Sure.
And the way we do that is by adjusting our budget stabilization account, that if we do exceed that, we'll just lower that amount, so that way we stay underneath that mill levy. And those will be done at basically the last step of the budget process to make sure that we don't exceed that number.
Mhm.
The next bullet that's on the agenda is to approve the outside agency allocations, which we had just got done completed, so I will put that in your budget packet for the July 25th meeting.
Okay.
And we have talked about the potential of the petition that is going around Ellis County to increase the commission level from 3 to 5. And the commission at the last meeting that we discussed it had chose to increase the funding level to support 5 commissioners, which was about $100,000 in addition to the budget. And nothing has changed, but I at least wanted the commission to be aware that that is in there. And then if that does change throughout the budgeting process before we do the final budget, come late August, about a month and a half from now, we can remove that out if that petition does fail.
Okay. Yep.
The retirement contribution rates, this was something that Commissioner Younger had asked, and we put, for the first time in the county, we started a 401k program for the county employees, that they would either get matched a $15 or $30 per paycheck. I thought I had that turned off. That we would match a $15 or $30 contribution to their retirement account. At that point, there was a request for the commission that also look at a $45 funding level match. And the response to the commission at that point was, if we have a good turnaround from the employees that actually start investing into their future and their retirement, that the commission would reconsider that at this point. Just for some quick numbers, at that point, when we had, I was kind of shocked. We only had 23 employees investing in their 401 or 457 plan. Since then, with the contribution, we've increased that 5 times right up. Last time I checked, we had 98 employees. So that's a pretty good turnaround. I don't know if that's what the commission had hoped for at that point, but based on the numbers that we have now for the employees that are actually in that, if 100% of all the employees did it, it would be about $72,000 a year is what it would cost to add another $15 increment. With the amount of employees that we have, it would be $32,000 to $33,000 in addition to our budget to allow for a $45 match, 15, 30, or 45. So with the budget that you see tonight, that is not in there. But if the commission wants to move forward with that, it's for a discussion tonight.
Commissioner Neal, you want to move forward?
I do believe so. I mean, I really don't want to say we hook some of them, but the word's out and they look into the future and to keep our employees, then
Right.
I would support that.
Commissioner Joe?
Yeah, it assists in recruiting and retainment of good personnel, so I'm in support of having that in there and getting that message out to the employees that there's another opportunity to add to their retirement income down the road.
And I'm also in favor of that, Darren. Like Commissioner Neal said, it's a very good recruitment, retainment for employees, and whatever we can do to facilitate that, we should.
Okay. I will get it updated in the next budget round that you receive for for July 25th and get those numbers included for you. Take a note. The budget stabilization account is the next, so that goes down into Department 97 of the general fund. And what the budget stabilization account is actually set aside for, there's a policy that needs updated, and as the commission knows, we're working on revamping the personnel policy and some of the other policies within. But we're actually not following policy for what our budget stabilization account needs to be. It's quite excessive for what our policy states. However, the budget stabilization account is also where we add in the funding for what may be approved the following year for potential raises. And I have some for our all county employees and elected officials. I, in the previous week, sent the commissioners a couple emails in regards to what those funding levels would look like based on step raises, COLA raises, I've also given I think a fair analysis of what's been going around the state, as well as some of our partners in and around Ellis County, as to employee raises for next year. And within the budget that you see tonight, there is adequate money set aside for $600,000 in addition for raises for the commission next year to decide how to best allocate those. And that is up from about $250,000 in previous years. But with the inflation, the workers' comp, or not workers' comp, the COLA, a lot of those are taken into place, and there's a lot of areas around us that I had sent to the commission that the average wage increases are about 6%. And for our 1% increase of employees' pay salaries, it costs about $92,000 across the board. So that doesn't commit the commission to giving a pay raise next year, but it gives the funding there for the commission to decide at that point what the commission feels is adequate and agree upon.
Well, I believe, Darren, what's really important is we can't let our pay scale get behind the curve. If we do, we're going to have problems. And I have talked to some of the county employees, and they're concerned about inflation, and they're concerned about keeping up with inflation. So I think we have to put enough in there to take care of that inflation if it does run up again 6, 7, 8%, so we can keep that pay scale up to par. If we let it get behind, we're going to have a hard time recruiting employees, and we're going to have some dissatisfied employees. So, Commissioner Neal?
Over the years, I've watched it, all the people leave out there because of that, and we've got to keep that up there to keep our employees. Got a lot of money invested in them, so I would support that.
Commissioner Joe?
Yeah, I'll support it too. It's just staggering what turnover, the true cost of turnover is.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
So as I had stated, the amount that's set aside is $600,000, which would equate just for a base, if the commission would do a base 6% cost adjustment, that's what it would equate out to. Is the 600 agreeable number, or do you want me to change that?
Do you want to go higher than 600,000 or leave it at 600,000?
we can leave it.
Leave it?
That's a start there.
That's a good start.
Yeah, it's a good
Okay.
starting point.
The next is the discussion on capital reserves. If you look throughout many of the department's budgets, this year we did some work at the department head and elected officials to look at their budgets in regards to how our current operating budgets are or are not funding the capital reserves. There's a lot of capital needs out there. When most people think of capital, you think of buildings. But there's IT, infrastructure, GIS, photography. We do have many buildings, tens of millions of dollars worth of buildings. And but you also have to look at equipment, vehicles, machinery. It takes a lot to operate a county government. And if we don't put money away each year for the department heads to have funding in the future for capital, that capital purchase doesn't happen unless we get creative and cut somewhere else. So when you look throughout the different budgets, not every department at this point has transfers to reserves, but if you see through many of the departments, IT, the sheriff, fire, EMS, Public Works, we've started to add small bits of what the future capital look like and how much they need each year to get to be able to pay for those expenses. So it is a funding increase to fund those capital. The capital is needed, but I thought we'd discuss it tonight to see if there's anything that stood out or a question, or if you want those completely removed or something different.
I believe if you want to have a good, honest budget, you need to plan for your capital. You just need to. And the only way to do that is to put it in the budgets. So I don't have a problem with having those in the budget. Commissioner Joe, what's your thought?
No, I'd rather have it in there and plan for it than the alternative.
I guess I should make the clarification that the only way the department heads are allowable currently to get funding into their capital reserves is by a policy that's set to encourage them to come under budget, which is always the good thing. But whatever they come under budget, if they come under budget $10,000, they get 50% of that under budget to be transferred to reserves, which is approved by the commission at the end of the year. So hopefully some of this will replace that. But also, like, as you stated, it actually plans to make sure that there's actually funding there, so that way if they do need a purchase the following year, the funding is there in their reserve accounts. And that's not just for equipment, that covers Fund 16, which is the capital equipment, but it also, we have funds set aside to go to Fund 78, which is the road and bridge. And I know that's one thing that Commissioner Younger mentioned to me on the phone earlier today, is our capital reserve for Fund 78 has increased. We've went over the previous years from 329,000. For 2023, you have 1.6 million set aside to go to Fund 78 for roads and bridges, which is an increase. It's doubling this year from 800,000.
Yeah, bridges are expensive.
Yes.
Commissioner Neal?
The stuff you had mentioned with, IT and GIS and stuff, that's great. We need that in there. We got to keep up with the technology, and
We do.
if not, we get behind. We know what that's like. It takes years to catch back up. So.
Okay.
Okay. On July 25th, you'll have plenty of time to discuss those transfers with the department heads to say, what's this X amount of dollar, since we're talking about IT, you can ask about Mike's transfer to reserves, but also within your budget and your agenda tonight, you can see the capital reserve for what their next 5 years of planned expenditures for their capital funds are actually looking for what each department needs.
I know I reviewed them.
Okay.
I'll have a couple questions for some people as we talk to them on the 25th, but I reviewed them.
Okay.
Commissioner Joe?
Yeah, I'm fine with it too.
Commissioner Neal?
I'm good.
One thing that since we started now into the capital, I listed about 6 bullet items there that are actually listed in our spreadsheet that we have put together for ARPA funding for the American Rescue Plan Act funds that we got. But several of those, it was the goal of the commission to try to identify projects that we had outlined that are future needs that are in our capital expenditures to be able to use the ARPA funds for. And several of those, the HVAC repairs at the Law Enforcement Center, aerial photography for the appraiser's office, the North Tower replacement, which is the public safety radio system, encryption in the radio channels, laptop replacements, and battery backup recovery systems. We have received 100% of our allocation from the ARPA funds, so now we are able to move forward with the second half of our projects. And I guess at this point, for those 6 projects, since they're also listed in capital and to help the department heads and elected officials plan for their capital, if the commission would give us preliminary approval to move forward with those 6 projects, to be able to go out for bid and bring them back to the commission. If the commission approves them to use out of ARPA funds, they can be removed out of the capital funds and better allow the department heads to plan for other capital expenditures or free up that cash in those capital funds.
It's fine with me. Commissioner Neal?
I support that big time.
Yeah.
Commissioner Joe?
That's the fair thing to do for the
is.
department head so that they can have a more accurate budget.
Some of those are going to be months out before we have some plans put together. Some of them are kind of in the works already. I will state the aerial photography, it's not just for the appraiser's office, but for the GIS departments, for NG911, for the realtors and everybody that uses that photography. But they are also working on the project with the city of Hayes because they want a better 3-inch. When you zoom in, it goes all the way down to 3-inch. Whereas everywhere else in the county, we either use 6 or 12-inch, depending on where we're at. So we could have a little cost share agreement working with the city of Hayes potentially on that.
That would be good.
One thing I did want to note out in the overall county valuation, as you saw, the county evaluation for the entire county went up from about 404 to 454,000 or 454 million. One thing that I found somewhat interesting, and I know I explain this every year, but the oil valuation for the county's general fund has a smaller impact. Of that $50 million increase, only about 30% of that $50 million increase is from the oil valuations. The oil valuations have basically doubled since our last year's budget. However, when you look at the fire district's budget, the increase was $23 million in total valuation, but 17 of that $23 million comes from the oil valuation, or about 75% of the county's fire department's budget is much higher, much bigger based, or better based off what the valuations are for the oil and not just the property tax. So that's one thing I wanted to point out there. Throughout the entire budget, the general fund budgets through the departments, I would say the largest portion of what you see for increases are fuel costs. If you look through Public Works, they've increased almost 50% of what they're wanting, which equates out to a couple $100,000. But when you previously budget for 140,000 gallons of fuel, and it costs only $2.50 a gallon, and it's up to around $6. Those are some of those market factors that we don't have control on, but we have to buy the fuel and we have to pay for those cost increases. A lot of the other fees that you'll see throughout the departments is some of the contractual services have went up. Contractual services is something that the sheriff's office has several, and based on their cost of their food and the cost to keep and retain their employees have gone up. So those get passed along to the county, and those upgrades and service agreements get passed along to us to be able to pay more too. One big example of a mixed combination of that is if you look at the solid waste fund. Through 2022, we've estimated about $20,000 a month is what it costs to haul all the municipal waste from the city of Hayes down to Garden City. That was based off an agreement, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago. And the fuel was, I can't remember what the starting rate was. It was $2 something a gallon. However, based on what the fuel prices are, that fluctuates. This last month has increased from 20,000 to almost 37,000. So when you look at the enterprise fund at solid waste, that alone plays for a majority of what their cost increase are besides just the fuel itself. So those are some of the biggest items in the budget to point out of solid waste. There are some graphs in there, and I can go through if you want. The healthcare benefit fund, as you can see, we brought that to the commission almost 2 years ago, and it seemed like it was going to be almost impossible to offer the same or better amount of benefits at a cheaper rate and still have money in the bank. And at the time of when I sent this agenda out, we were about 2,500 short of being 1 million in the bank. I'd like to point out that if we were still on the state employee plan and we wouldn't have switched to FCMI, that $1 million that is in the bank would have been paid to the state. The state would have kept it and they would have reused it for whatever based on premiums. For our two-tier system that we have, that $1 million is staying in our banks here in Hayes and Ellis County, and we're able to use that. We used it this year to offset the cost of the 3.3% increase in health insurance, and we're still gaining month by month as well. So that has turned out very well, and hopefully we can continue to either keep insurance costs low, if not maybe offset the costs a little bit with keeping that fund at a higher amount. Our consultant is also looking at moving potentially within the next year or two, if that fund continues to grow, or we can move to a more of a self-funded plan based on our, after we start getting multiple years of claims history and data available, that it would be more satisfactory for us to do that and even save more money. So they're gonna bring that to us, some ideas later this year to the Wage and Benefits Committee.
Sounds good.
Sales tax has been doing good, as you can see through the different departments that the sales tax gets. That the sales tax gets distributed to is mainly between health and EMS. We projected the first year of receiving those 2 years ago to be very conservative because we didn't know where they would be at, but those trends continue to climb and from month to month. And for the budget for next year, I've included in that spreadsheet, if you see that there's a 6-month and a 12-month average for where those sales tax collections are coming in at. And inflation has done a lot to, I think, from where our sales tax collections are. The more people pay for a product, the more the sales tax comes in at. But I'm still using the conservative numbers to not capture all of that sales tax, just in case, I know all three commissioners, everybody in the room have heard the discussion of a possible recession coming in. So I'd hate to overestimate our revenues on the sales tax, and then a recession happen, and then we lose a lot more than what we anticipated on. So that's why they were a little bit conservative from the spreadsheets that you saw on the agenda.
Mhm.
With that, I'd hate to see your eyes glaze over even more with a whole bunch of numbers, but I just want to get those key highlights out for you to be able to prepare for your July 25th meeting. Between hopefully now and next week, I'll get a binder put together for you, so that way you have a binder for you to be able to review a week before the meeting with the current budget, and each department split up, so that way you can take notes and have them all in a better format than what's on tonight's agenda.
Sounds good, Darren. Commissioner Neal, any current concerns, comments?
Nope. Just keep up the good work.
Commissioner Joe?
Yeah, I enjoy the cell on the slide 45 that shows that the current sales tax collection is the equivalent of almost 8 mills. That kind of really shows you the importance of that sales tax collection for the county and the county budget. And then the other thing I was going to ask, is there any way you could resend slide 46? Because it's, on mine anyway, you can glance at it. It's like, scroll down, maybe it is that way on yours too. All right, it is not that way on yours too. On mine, it's like you can't make it out. None of the numbers you can make out.
I can definitely resend it to you, though.
That's, yeah.
Do you want both of those last two ones, or just the last one?
No, I've got the sales tax collection slide. The employee health care fund slide for some reason is very fuzzy, almost like maybe somebody scanned it and it didn't quite take.
Okay.
Okay, is that it, Darren?
It's all in the budget.
Okay, county administrator report.
I do have a couple things to ask the commission on, or let the commission know. This week, on Wednesday and Thursday, we have several of our staff members heading down to Wichita for the Kansas Infrastructure Hub Seminar, and those are going over the federal grant dollars that are coming down, mainly for infrastructure, roads, bridges, cybersecurity, water, sewer. So we have several department heads going down there to take part on what all's coming down, what all funding is going to be available, and how we can get money coming, hopefully, or for us to apply for, to get money coming to Ellis County to maybe offset some of these road and bridge projects that we have. So we will be down there attending that. One nice thing that I saw last month, in the month of June, is we hosted supervisor training for our employees out of the county. We had 2 different days. Over those days, we had 22 one day and 31 the next. And so over 50 different supervisors throughout the county went through a supervisor boot camp to talk about their communication and their personal skills in relation to their employees. So it was nice to see that we had good turnout from our staff on attending those sessions. And the last item I wanted to mention, or at least ask the commission if you want to give me a direction, is the Northwest Planning and Development Committee, or Commission, has requested to be on the agenda next week. I know the commission in the past has asked that, has told them several times, I guess, no, that the commission is not interested. But Mr. Raby has requested to be on the agenda to ask once again. And I'd hate to waste his time to come down here if the commission is not willing to be a part of the Northwest Planning and Development
He does
Committee,
have to come here from Hill City, so it does take him some time. I know from my perspective, I have no interest in that organization at all. Commissioner Neal,
I do not either.
Commissioner Joe.
Yeah, nothing's changed for me from the last time this was brought up. He's like anyone, he's always welcome to take the time to come visit with us if he would like, but out of courtesy for the commute, I'd like him to know that I'm not inclined to change my mind.
Okay. I'll at least reach out to him and let him know that the commission is not interested, but if he still chooses to come, I guess that's
Yeah,
his
he's
prerogative.
welcome to come, so
Okay.
it's his time.
The last question that I'd skipped over a note is going back to the outside agency fundings. There was one request from the Victoria Community Coalition and a request for $10,000 in funds. That was not in the spreadsheet because it was not really an outside agency and didn't really know where the commission was at. You wanted some time to think about it, so I didn't know if the commission would like me to add that or,
I've given that some thought. And when we talked to the gentleman whose name I can't remember right now,
Mr. Pfeiffer.
Jeff Pfeiffer.
okay, he was uncertain as to how they could even use $10,000 from the county, except he did say it could be for architectural fees, but he didn't really know what those fees would even cost. I think at this point in the project, it's just too premature. I feel like we'd just be doing some speculation with taxpayer money. And so I would rather not go into that at this point in time. Commissioner Joe?
As much as I'd like to be supportive of the project in Victoria because of all the other things that it would attract as far as the Historical Society and their display, taking advantage of the traffic already in Victoria from the Basilica. The last time I spoke with them, they're not yet a not-for-profit agency. They're still a private entity, so we wouldn't be able to fund them either way.
Okay.
So I think I wouldn't close the door to supporting them down the road, but I think they actually need to have their not-for-profit status and have to be able to articulate exactly what they're going to spend the money for.
Sure. I agree with that, Joe. Commissioner Neal?
It's like Commissioner Joe said before, if we start doing that, everybody's going to come to us, but I feel, let them try to get on their feet,
Mhm.
let them do some fundraising, show us what, and then maybe there's a possibility of it at that time.
You know, within the community, they've had very productive meetings. They're starting to kind of get their feet underneath them. They've got a direction. You know, the coalition is a good thing for the Victoria community. I just, again, I would hold back until they were actually a not-for-profit first off, and then just a little bit more of a firming up of what their plan with the money
Sure.
would be.
Absolutely. Okay, so we'll leave them out of 23 budget.
That's all I got.
Okay, county commissioner reports. Commissioner Joe?
I had the chance to go tour properties with the Treasury Department, and the sheriff was with us as well, just to kind of see what interest the county might have on some of those properties if they were to go to the foreclosure sale, and that's what I have.
Okay, Commissioner Neal?
I have one question for Darren. Do we have any kind of an update on the HVAC system in here, how they're doing, as far as progress in the building?
So one thing that we're currently working on is we got the load limits, load calculations for the building to help determine the size of the generator, which determines the side of the pad for outside. As you can tell in the parking lot is tore up. They got some area tore up on the alley side for where they're having to run conduit in and everything for the new chiller that'll be sitting out in that old rock garden. They've repaired all of the air handling units, which I believe, I always forget, it's like 117 different units in the building. The new chiller is on order, but that was like I think that was like a 6-month waiting period. And they're continuing to go through, they're working on the valves, getting ready to make sure all the valves are going to be ready for, they're not replacing the valves, they're replacing the handles, so that way when they turn, they move with the new system. So it's progressing. We've met with Adams Brown for upstairs in regards to some of their needs. We had an IT room upstairs that once they get done with their renovations, it's no longer going to be a true server room where it needs its own mini split. So we'll be able to, we had to the engineer out of Manhattan is redoing some locations of where the walls are at in regards to the IT room, as well as some new offices in that same area to make sure that we're capturing everything that they're going to have when they renovate. So it's still moving along. It's going to be late fall until the chiller gets here before we switch over for the final piece of it. But once the boilers and everything start getting in and a lot of the equipment, that's when we'll actually go down and, I won't, but Glassman Corporation will go down and they'll start gutting out the old boiler out of the maintenance room down here and start redoing all the valving and the piping and plumbing and all that for that. So that's about where we're at, and hopefully soon I'll be able to get you the specifications, or get the specifications out for the generator, so we can get that on order as well, because generators are also have a significant lead time for we're looking at I think it was about a 300 kW generator to put this entire building on that. So that's kind of in a nutshell where we're at. I hope that answered your question.
That, and I'd like to see what the possibility is in the boiler room, if we would take a picture of that before, and then when everything gets installed, then we could at least show our community what we've been doing with the money, that it is going to a good place and use. So the other thing, I went to the Ellis meeting last week, and if my fellow commissioners are all right, I talked to Kurt and Brendan today about, it's been a year ago where we would assist them on from the old folks home into the intersection by the elevator. If we could take that berm down, get it down so the water can run off instead of sitting there and pooling. So I guess I'm just asking that, if you guys are good with that.
I'm fine with it, sure.
Okay. And the other thing, I went and participated in serving 300 meals at the bike tour Saturday, and it was hot there, but had a good turnout.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Neil. And I have no report. Commissioner Joe, do you have an executive session?
I do. I move the Board of County Commissioners recess to executive session for 10 minutes under the following exception to the Kansas Open Meetings Act pursuant to the attorney-client privilege exception. The subject to be discussed during the executive session is tax foreclosure sale. Those in addition to the Board of County Commissioners are Bill Jeter and Darren Myers.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes 3-0. Action taken. And I will move to go into executive session for 15 minutes to discuss attorney-client privilege regarding a current lease agreement. Those involved would be the Board of Commissioners, Sheriff Brown, Bill Jeter, and Darren Myers. Do I hear a second?
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 2-0.
Just a little over, but we got it.
Yeah, about 3 minutes.
Good seeing you.
Okay, there's no action taken, and we will adjourn at 6:32.